So I'm based here in New York. Some of you might not know Oxfam. We are a global movement of 21 organizations. We have presence in 85 countries, and we're working on inequality and injustice. We are a global movement that's fighting inequality and injustice. I always laugh with others to say, when you can't find Coca-Cola, please look for Oxfam. Because in addition to the 21 organizations which comprise of our confederation, we also work with a range of partners on the ground. So where Oxfam is not there, certainly our partners are there. Yes, I have the honor to moderate this session. Our session is on networking and planning. Comrades and friends, in the last few days when we've been here, we've been hearing about a poly-crisis of challenges. Poly-crisis of challenges. I think what we haven't stressed on is that how this poly-crisis also has a poly processes and events. And all these events and processes are extremely, extremely, extremely complex. So within this, I think we have to recognize that different colleagues are participating and are engaging. And this is what we are trying to do in this session, bring everything together. But before we go into the session, may I invite maybe just a few housekeeping announcements to ensure that we are speaking not only with the colleagues that are in this room, but also engaging our colleagues that have joined us online. And colleagues that are online, welcome to this session, where we'll give you an opportunity to engage as well. So let me invite just my colleagues to say one or two things on translation and just ensuring that everyone is picking up. Hi, everybody. Sorry. Really speak inside the microphone, loud and clear, or the people will not hear you online. So this is not good. This is not very good. This is good, okay? All right. Pour les francophones ici, petit rappel, il y a l'interprétation qui est disponible. Hein. Vous vous connectez sur Zoom, le petit globe, et vous accédez à l'interprétation. Si ça marche mal, si le Wi-Fi n'est pas bon, vous venez me voir et je m'occupe de vous. OK? Ok, merci. Español, tenemos interpretación. ¿Eh? Zoom. Ok. Yo no hablo español. Interpretación en Zoom, español, okay? All right. Have a good session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We promise you we're really going to have a very exciting session. So like I was saying, we have a situation where we're faced with a poly-crisis of issues and a poly-crisis of a poly-process, complex, eventful world where there are so many things that are happening. There's many of us that are engaging. We're engaging in silos and we're not talking to each other. Unfortunate for CSOs, unlike our governments are engaging at all the levels and in all the processes. We're limited by a number of challenges. We have the challenge of resources, but then we also do not have the opportunity of having information and also being included. So there are certain things that are beyond us, but there's certain things that we can do. And one of the things that we can do in order to do what the governments are doing in being present everywhere and engaging in all the processes is making sure that we are networked. And we're not just networked, but we are also planning and ensuring that we are very strategic. So with me here, I have a very competent and exciting panel. Each of the panelists will be speaking to different processes that they're engaging in, and I'll ask them in 5 minutes, not just to give us information about these processes and issues that they're following in, but also be very strategic in informing us how we can engage as a collective. So quickly to introduce my panelists, I have on my immediate, my daughter always tells me she has to help me in understanding which is my left and right, but I think I get it. This is my left. So on my left side, I have Masaki Inaba, and Masaki is coming from the Africa-Japan Forum, and he is also representing UCAP Japan. And then on my far right, I have, on left, sorry, David Williams. And David Williams is coming from Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung or Foundation. Welcome. And then on the further side, I have Barbara. Barbara Adams is coming from the Global Policy Forum. Welcome, Barbara. Always on the left. Woo! Ingo, everyone knows Ingo. He probably doesn't need any introduction. So I'll move on to my far right and introduce Nadara. Nadara, who's temporarily sitting on the right, but she's always on the left. And Nadara is representing an organization that we're also part of, which is the Coalition for the UN We Need, C for UN, and then she's also representing the Simpson Center. So, Masaki. Oh, sorry, Puta. Oh, we need, please, when there's no space for you on the table, you grab the and bring it here. So no, we need you here. Please join the table. It's big enough for all of us. So Puja is also speaking, and she is representing the Society for International Development and the FFD civil society mechanism. So Masaki is going to run us through health summit and health events. So like I said, in 5 minutes, please tell us about the processes and tell us what is being planned for the future and how we can meaningfully mobilize and ensure that as a collective we are networking and we are speaking to at those summits. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Masaki Inaba, of Africa Japan Forum, and I have been working on health issues. So I will explain something about the 3 high-level meetings on related to health, which will take place from the Wednesday to Friday. On Wednesday, 20th, there will be the UN high-level meeting on the pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, or PPPR also. And on Thursday, 21, there will be the high-level meeting on universal health coverage. And Friday, there will be the TB, tuberculosis high-level meeting will be there. And as you know, that the health is the fundamental human rights of everybody. And also, we need to be, and we all need to be protected from the diseases or how to say the health challenges. And also, she said that the current situation is how to say the polycrisis, and the health consists one of the elements of the polycrisis. One is how to say pandemic. You all experience COVID-19. And also the COVID-19 level pandemic, we will experience next pandemic. And how to say the risk of the pandemic is 3-fold higher than before. And also some statistics says that the pandemic, the COVID-19 level pandemic will appear in this decade, it is that 27%. So it is very much, so that the pandemic is very much our threat. And also, as you know, everybody has been in the crisis of the syndemic of obesity and non-communicable diseases. This is also a very much difficult point. So, so in these three high-level meetings, we will, so that the government and also that the stakeholders will discuss about how to prepare the pandemic and also how to prevent, how to avoid the everybody go to the syndemic of the obesity and the disease and also other kind of difficult health problems. And these three meetings, I will explain something about the three meetings. One is the tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, the political declaration draft of the tuberculosis is slightly better than others. It is more concrete, and it has more concrete targets, and also because of the more civil society involvement. And also that it was led by the Stop TB Partnership, and it has been always making the strong efforts for the civil society involvement. So that the communities has been mentioned, and also assigned the numerical targets, and more numerical targets are there. On universal health coverage, it is rather than it is worse than TB political declaration. It is more based and also less numerical targets, and also the unfortunately it is weak on the financial protection of everybody. So just to commit or reaffirm the past commitment. So but no concrete action. So that the UHC declaration is not so good compared to TB. And also about the PPP and pandemic preparedness response political declaration draft, it lacks kind of leadership. And some people urge to develop a kind of the UN Council of Health Crisis. But there are no mention about that kind of leadership. And also, this PPPR is a very much, there is a conflict between the North and South. And as you know, that there was a vaccine apartheid in COVID-19, and we experienced the COVID-19. And in pandemic treaty negotiation, we have been discussing about how to ensure the technology sharing and also technology transfer, as well as the manufacturing capacity strengthening in the global South. This is the most difficult issue in the pandemic prevention and response issues. And there is a battle between the North and South about how clearly mentioned about the mandatory measures and to make the technical technology sharing and then the transfer, as well as the manufacturing capacity strengthening. Unfortunately, global North has been also passive about this issue, so that we need to work more on the I will say it, yeah, more on the advocacy, and to ensure the technology sharing and the technology sharing and also the technology the transfer, as well as the manufacturing capacity strengthening in the global South. So this is one of the difficulties, our challenges. And also there is the main forum of discussion, and it is a pandemic treaty negotiation. So that we need to focus more on this pandemic treaty negotiation process, and which will be ended in the next World Health Assembly. So anyway, so we have three high-level meetings, and it is necessary to get the high-level agreement of the political declaration, and we need to fight for our life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Masaki. My intention was actually to just look at the watch and ensure that he speaks for 5 minutes. But I noticed that he timed himself. So he stole 1 minute from the 5 minutes that he was given, but that is allowed. Given the fact, colleagues, that the issues that we're talking about are very complex and they need a lot of time to unpack. But however, it's often the case when we meet like this that we hardly have enough time to unpack everything. So thank you very much, and we'll take up your challenge of following these 3 high-level health summits and picking on the fundamental issues that you've raised. Vaccine apartheid is something that we witnessed and felt and experienced and lost our loved ones. We also are aware that there is
because it's mainly a sort of an effort to develop pressure on heads of state who have been unwilling to move for a very long time. So it's a bit unclear to see why they would be doing that now. There is, however, one big issue, which is, of course, climate finance. For those of you who were at this morning's session, there was a lot of talk about climate finance, and there are 2 meetings that I think are worth highlighting. There's the Ministerial on loss and damage, which is happening on Friday, where, again, ministers will be invited to talk about where we're at and how to create pressure for the loss and damage fund, particularly in the run-up to COP28. It looks to be created without any references to historical responsibility and thus sort of lifting developed countries out of their obligation to pay significant amounts, which we see as very critical. And also the role of the World Bank as administrators of the fund, we also see very, very critical, critically, just because the World Bank is not traditionally in the business of grant-based financing, but loan-based financing. And this is not in the interest of those most impacted by climate change. And just leading upon that, the second important meeting is happening on Wednesday between the heads of IFIs, International Financial Institutions, and the United Nations Secretary General, just to hash out exactly what the role of the World Bank could be in this fund. So those are 2 things really to look out for. this week, and also in advance to COP28, of course, because what happens here is important. For COP28 itself, of course, is being framed as the fossil fuel phase out COP, but be wary of the president of COP also being head of the national oil company of the UAE, and also constantly referring to needing to phase out fossil fuel emissions. The word emissions being key there, of course, because this opens the door to a lot of very, very dubious technologies, carbon capture and storage. There's even solar radiation management being talked about at the UNGA now. And also a real push for alternative energy sources such as hydrogen, such as nuclear energy sources, which are very, very problematic in themselves. And all this talk is sort of to serve up upholding the status quo of overconsumption in the West and economies which are reliant on fossil fuels. So we cannot let ourselves as civil society get distracted by this. And what else is happening is the GSE, the global stock trade, that happens every 5 years, where the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions of each country, will be assessed just to sort of see where we're at in terms of efforts to reduce CO2, and those greenwashing efforts are still to play a role in those GSE talks, and the GSE talks are also hampered by the fact that big nations and big Western polluting nations are refusing to acknowledge any responsibility for historic or cumulative emissions. Again, adaptation will also play a key role. All climate finance is actually supposed to be split 50-50 down the middle between mitigation and adaptation. There will also be the NCQG process, the newly collected quantified goal on climate finance, which is sort of supposed to increase the $100 billion a year goal, which was agreed on in Copenhagen. Still hasn't been delivered until today. But even before they're delivering that, they're going to set a new quantified goal for the future, which would be great if it was delivered at some point. This is supposed to be 50-50 between mitigation and adaptation. Adaptation is something which is really lacking attention right now, and it's actually really, really important in regions which are affected by climate change impact. One of the issues right now is that the waters are being muddied between what is adaptation and what is loss and damage. Okay, we've fought for years on creating this loss and damage fund purely for loss and damage. And now developed countries who are paying into this fund are saying, oh, well, some of this could also go on to adaptation. And sort of reframing the whole idea of this loss and damage fund. And this, of course, needs to be fought against because any money delivered through the loss and damage fund needs to be new and additional and not double counted to other sources of aid, which are already being delivered. I noticed that I'm being looked at, which I assume means that my time is over. So I shall stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Had we had more time, we would have requested you to speak a little bit more towards our mobilization strategies. What is it that we need to do? But I think we still come back to you. May I now call upon my friend, Nadara, who will be taking us through in 5 minutes on the Summit of the Future and how we can organize ourselves and how we can plan around the Summit of the Future. Thank you so much, Sandra. And I will be, I will stick to 5 minutes because I don't want to take on Brenda's back. So very quickly, the reason that I got a prompt from English to talk about the Summit of the Future here is because the Ministerial meeting is taking place on the 21st of September. So in 2 days, 2 days time from now. So I lost track of the days, as you can imagine, Rudanga. So we have seen a resolution that has been agreed on for a scope and elements of the Summit of the Future process. I'll get into a bit of detail on that, but that's sort of what's being discussed right now. Or will be discussed at the Summit of the Future. But let me very quickly take a step back and just explain what's going on with this idea of the Summit of the Future, because I realize that not all of you spend all your waking hours thinking about the summits that are happening at the UN, and you know, I can't judge you for that. But so the Summit of the Future, the way I like to think about it personally, and I'm going to use something that I did to explain to a group of high school students recently. So the goals that we're trying to reach are the Sustainable Development Goals, the sort of alleviating poverty, the general goals that we see with Paris or the financing for development in Addis Ababa or several other agendas that are already set at the UN. I don't think the Summit of the Future is about setting new agendas. That's the first point to make. Those are the goals at the top of the mountain, right? And what we're doing at the SDG Summit is trying to find the right tools to climb that mountain. We're trying to say, okay, we need to track how high the mountain is. We need to look how far we've come. We need to find the pits and the tools and get better skills and get better resources. And here are all the things we need to do to climb that mountain. The Summit of the Future is about chipping away at the mountain itself, right? It's about trying to make the structure easier for us to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. So it's the what, some people say it's the what and the how, some people say it's the institutions, it's the goals, but in the end, it's all about trying to turbocharge, accelerate, or whatever word you want to use, make things easier for us to try to reach the goals that we're trying to achieve. So if you want to alleviate poverty, well, let's tackle global finance. If you want to get sort of end violence against women and girls, right, let's tackle what the idea of peace looks like at the United Nations, right? So that's the way that I think Summit of the Future works, and it's helpful to just have that framing. So very quickly on where we're at with the entire process. There are currently 5 agreed chapters to the scope and elements of the Summit of the Future, which will see an outcome of a pact for the future. Chapter 1 is on sustainable development and financing for development. Chapter 2 is international peace and security. Chapter 3 is science, technology, and innovation and digital cooperation. Technology, science, technology, and innovation and digital cooperation. Chapter 4 is youth and future generations. Chapter 5 is transforming global governance. So first, just to say there is still scope to, despite these chapters being defined, there's scope to see what that means. And I think that is a key role that civil society and the folks in this room need to be playing about what is it that we want member states to agree on within those chapters. But also, just to give you some sense of the thinking that Coalition for the UN and other partner organizations have been thinking about already. So with financing for development, I think it's important to restate existing sectors that exist and the importance of having sort of what reinforcing what already exists and not creating parallel streams, but again, trying to make it easier for us to run what already exists. In peace and security, we're seeing the new agenda for peace, and they're constantly sort of thinking about how we can feed into that. In digital cooperation, we're seeing the Global Digital Compact. In youth and future generations, there is a call for concern to make sure that we do not conflate youth with future generations. Those are 2 very separate constituencies, and we are all responsible for both of them, but youth are not responsible for future generations on their own. And we're seeing a declaration on future generations, we're seeing a UN Youth Office, and on transforming global governance, it's sort of a bucket of several things that are taking place in terms of institutional reform. The final thing maybe that I'll say is what can we be doing as a group from this year till next year. The Summit of the Future is set to take place on the 22nd and 23rd of September 2024. The Ministerial meeting is going to take place 21st of September. What we're hoping to see at the Ministerial meeting is a serious high-level commitment to support of acting on the Summit of the Future scope and elements. Because at the moment, we're seeing tensions across different member states. We're seeing tensions between those who are saying this is not a development agenda, which to some extent could be of concern, but then we need to make it a development agenda, right? So we need to make it something that feels relevant to all of the stakeholders involved. And so that's sort of some of the things that we should be pushing. And also, it's really important, those of us engaged here at the SDG Summit, that we take the follow-on from the SDG Summit, feed it into the foundations of the Summit of the Future, and then see through past the Summit of the Future as well. Because obviously, we're not just about measuring from one summit to the other, but it is about seeing the follow-through, filtering it onto the ground, and sort of really making these impacts matter. So with that, I would just like to say Coalition for the UN, we've been working on an interim People's Pact. We hope to turn it into a People's Pact for the future over the coming year. please take this as an open invitation to invite yourselves and all of those of you who you know who may be interested in an initiative like that. They're feeding into a People's Pact for the Future to get involved, because really this is civil society. These are the people that we want to be talking to. Jeff is over there writing away at his laptop. I'm over here. Please come have a conversation with any of us about some of the plans for the road ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nadara. I cheated a little bit. I deliberately did not put my cloak on. but when I did put the cloak on, you didn't take all the time. So I think we're within reach. Colleagues, the Summit of the Future is very important. It's a very important process that we all need to take interest in. How many of you are from Africa? Can I just, by show of hands? Yeah. When the UN was established in 1945, there were only 4 African countries that were independent, who even remotely, with very little capacity, participated in the formulation or any discussion that was happening. Africa as a bloc, and I'm speaking of Africa, it could be the same with many other regions, but Africa as a bloc was just not there. The UN was not established with a structure that speaks to our needs. We have been playing catch up. I think the Summit of the Future provides that rare opportunity for us as a people to begin questioning whether this institution that we constantly participate in, and not just constantly participate in, but also invest in, because our countries are contributing, is serving the needs or speaks to our aspirations. So please go back and mobilize. Let's mobilize our people and tell them we have an opportunity now to start shaping the United Nations. It's the same for many of you and many regions for that matter, that, you know, this is an opportunity. I hope, like Nadara has said, we make it a development question if it's not a development question. I'm taking your time because I'm very passionate about this, but I hope we can mobilize ourselves and show up next year, or within the process itself for that matter, to ensure that we contribute to having a United Nation that is truly we the people. And I've heard that a slogan over and over. So yeah, we move on. 5 minutes. Moving on to Pooja. Pooja, she will be speaking on the FFD, the Financing for Development process, which is also different processes, different engagements. How do we mobilize over things? Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible. Thanks. My name is Pooja Rangaprasad, and I am speaking on behalf of the Civil Society Financing for Development Mechanism, which is the open civil society platform of several hundreds of organizations and networks that follows the UN Financing for Development process. This is a process that was historically pushed by the Global South countries, because of their frustration around the fact that the rules around the global finance architecture was really being decided in clubs and in forums that were dominated by global North countries, and as a result were biased, of course, in favor of global North countries. And so historically, this was a process they pushed to the United Nations to really push for processes to instead be established in the UN on issues around global finance, whether it's around sovereign debt, around international tax, around trade and development, increasingly around technology, to ensure that every single global South country is also part of norm setting and standard setting around global finance in a way that works for them as well. So again, the fault lines are very much north-south in this process, because it has been hugely challenging, as you would imagine, to establish those sort of processes in the United Nations. And of course, this week, we have what is the high-level dialogue on FFD, which is something that is organized every 4 years. It was agreed at the third FFD conference, which was in Addis Ababa in 2015, And there they agreed to do this high-level FFD conference every 4 years. So we've seen one that happened in 2019, and this is the second one. There is no negotiated outcome document. So it really is just a lot of high-level statements. So it's not politically relevant in the sense of being a negotiated outcome, but it is a moment where we, of course, track to see what member states are saying, particularly in terms of high-level participation and who really shows up. So it's not a hugely politically relevant moment, I would say, on financing for development. For that, we're looking forward to a fourth Financing for Development conference, which last year, UN member states said they would consider convening a fourth FFD conference in 2025. So it wasn't the most definitive language. But this year, in the second committee negotiations, which will be in October, can you hear me now? Okay. So in the second committee negotiations next month in October, where there is an annual FFD resolution that is agreed, our hope is that we will now see a clear commitment for a fourth FFD conference, most likely in 2025. But of course, we still don't know, and we don't have a good sense of whether it might be contested negotiations or not. But most likely, we are heading for a possible fourth FFD conference in 2025. We understand earlier today, Spain offered to also organize such a conference. So there is momentum building towards that. And of course, as we've been sharing with everything else, from SDG financing to climate financing, this really is the agenda that we need to see a lot more progress than we have. The one good thing has been on international tax, where in the second committee last year, Africa Group tabled a resolution calling for a UN tax convention. Again, very contested negotiations, but finally they have agreed by consensus to start an intergovernmental process to address the international tax system. This has been a long fight of 277 in the UN really for decades now. And so in the second committee process that starts in October, we are looking towards a follow-up, which will be led by Africa Group again. And so this is hugely important, particularly in addressing, of course, corporate tax dodging around the world. What we often talk about, taxing the rich corporations and rich individuals, and really closing the loopholes in the international tax system. So this is something that will again start, there will be contested negotiations again and following up on this, but that will be again next month. In terms of joining, if you're interested to be part of this collective and working with all of us to strategize and work towards all of these different milestones, please look up our website, the Civil Society FFD Mechanism, and there is a link there to join the group and a form that you can fill and you can be part of all the fun. So I will stop there, but thank you all for this opportunity. Thanks. Thank you very much. To give us 2 seconds. Barbara Adams, always on the left. May I invite you? Thank you very much. And I'm going to sort of approach this slightly differently. How many people here have not been to this high-level week in September at the UN General Assembly before? Quite a lot of people. Okay. And in addition to what you've heard already, I would like to add to this crazy week and your already overfull agenda, something that is boringly called the general debate. The general debate starts tomorrow, and this happens each year. We don't have summits each year. We have each year the general debate. And this is a time when heads of state and government, many heads of state and government, come regularly to New York. And the policy statements that get made in that general debate outline the priorities and concerns of what they're bringing to this situation. One of the things that's very valuable about those statements, although I warn you, they're not all going to keep you awake, is that you hear individual country statements, not group statements, not negotiations. And so from the point of view of accountability, from the point of view of work that one does at home, from the point of view of engaging beforehand, what are you going to say? From the point of view of organizing afterwards, why did you say that? How come you missed that? Blah, blah, blah. You know how to do this. I think those statements are very useful. And there is a calendar of them. Just traditionally, Brazil always starts. Second is always the US, or rather the host country. If we manage to move the UN out to the US, maybe we'd have another country starting second. But also check it out. I do think for those of you that are doing this work, connecting this work at home as well, that could be useful. The second thing about kind of working and mobilization is it's really important to know where we are in a particular process. And you've heard a lot of different places in the process. The SDG Summit adopted by consensus this morning a political declaration. So the negotiations for the declaration are completed. But the interesting thing is, if you paid, I don't know how many of you followed it, the European Union was resisting all the way along to actually welcome and support the Secretary General's proposal for an SDG stimulus, which they did this morning. A little bit like some of the dynamics, if Pooja had the time to tell you the story about what happened in the tax. Now, the other part of all of that, which is not visible, is submit, them during the process. A lot of what happens here is not necessarily what you see, but resistance, negotiations, often last minute. And there are a couple of other dynamics, which I won't go into, that also influence that. And that is going to also, I believe, be at play when we get to the SDG Summit conversations and the decision that's going to take place there. Now, that process is not the end. All that's being adopted there is a decision on the scope and modalities, but the scope and modalities determine the potential. And Nidara read out the actual list on the agenda. It's so general, it tells us nothing. For those of you who really want to dig into this, look up the co-facilitator's letter of the people who did it, and they start to spell out in that letter areas of disagreement that will still be at play, even if we go forward. I'm going to do some really naughty aside. Frankly, while I would be supportive of the Summit of the Future, and a lot of people are not, I think to hold a meeting of that significance, if it's going to redo multilateralism and bring it up to date from the fact that the governors of the present system were those that were put in place when, as we've heard, most countries in the world weren't even politically independent, to hold a meeting of that significance almost 2 months before the US presidential election, to me, sorry team, sounds nuts. So while the agenda might be significant, I think there are quite a few other factors that are at play. The meetings, the other couple of meetings, the health one, I believe that the pandemic PD is still being negotiated, as you mentioned. So that's a very different process. Being involved in that one is a different kind of work, okay? And it really means getting on top of issues and engaging with your government on it. There's a lot at stake there. The climate, and also for FFD, this is more of a mobilization. This is more of an awareness. This is more planning for the future. Although I would say on both of those occasions, it's extremely likely, because heads of state and government come and do deals here behind closed doors. But they're not talking about the outcome of the conference. I would be totally surprised. So I think that sort of a lot of that kind of talk and work takes place. In terms of the connection, we're talking here about the SDGs. We all know you can't achieve the SDGs without not just money, public money, public finance. The market solutions do not guarantee human rights. If the SDGs are going to be achieved, a lot of what's in there is about human rights, which takes us very quickly to what Kuda's been talking about, what David's been talking about. In other words, these are connected. If we don't mobilize public finance and we don't have accountable public institutions, we're going to be in real trouble with the SDGs. So while we might be in the second part and we want to correct and rescue and all these nice words we hear, the things that Puja's working on, the thing that other people are working on is intimately connected, and fundamentally, there's a governance flaw, as we've already heard. One thing I will add to that agenda, 43 governments finance 40% of everything the UN does. And most of that funding is voluntary, not assessed, and does not go to core. Don't tell me that isn't a governance failure. So I got a little piece of paper. I got two more red alerts. One of them is crisis talk. Yes, we're in a crisis. We're in a crisis because of a failure of policies for a long time. Let's be careful that we don't then just resort to crisis management and crisis finance, because that's not long-term funding, that isn't fundamental policy changes. We need new policies of all different kinds. Second red alert, historic responsibilities are difficult enough to keep alive in the climate work. We need historic responsibilities in all of the policies and the governance structure that we're dealing with now. These are commonalities across all of our processes. I apologize. Oh, sorry. I'm lucky enough to have not read the note and have been asked to comment on something else. Okay. 1 minute, less than 1 minute. Something else that is on the agenda for 2025 is the World Social Summit. The World Social Summit, now, I'm a little bit worried about 25. If some of these other things happen, we might have lost some scope for what we need to do, but tell me to stop being such a whatever. And I think that a lot of the issues we talk about, in essence, are about human rights and they're about redistribution, and they're about inequalities both domestically and internationally. And if that isn't the agenda for the World Social Summit, I don't know what it is. Thank you very much, Barbara. I gave Barbara, for obvious reasons, a few more minutes. I think if you followed her presentation, she tried to bring everything together and connect for us. So thank you very much, Barbara. I want us to have a bit of time for conversation. So I will allow Ingo to talk about mobilization. So I think much of the suggestions and how we mobilize will come from the plenary, from the collective wisdom in this room. I will give you 2 minutes to just speak to that, and then we'll open the floor for 10 minutes. How about that?
Okay, so let me try. So it's a bit different input than what the other colleagues said here. So you see there's a lot of very good advocacy going on, and that's very crucial and important. But I come from the global call to action against poverty, and we are convinced that we will achieve the changes we need only if we mobilize, if there are people on the streets and people demand change. So my point is now, if you see all these summits, maybe the summits itself are not so interesting for the people. The UN is very far. But we see, for example, with climate, that the topic is very relevant for the people. We have seen the climate march, the fossil fuel march yesterday in New York, and this was great. So people all over the world mobilize. So what does it mean for these topics of, for example, for the World Social Summit, for the financing, for development topics, debt justice, tax justice, and so on. So the question is basically, can we as civil society, are we able to mobilize together? So I believe we have a responsibility to do this together, but we all know it's not easy. So we have seen the declaration which we have brought together from this People's Assembly. That was already a symbol, a process. It's not easy, but I believe we have actually enough in common. And we know from the bigger coalitions around the world, we can mobilize if we want. But of course, it needs to be a mobilization which is really coming from the people, and it needs to be a mobilization which is coming in blood from the global south. So we don't need any more mobilizations that are somehow planned in Europe, and then it is brought to the whole world. So I just like to remind us of the Jubilee 2000 mobilization. For me, that's always a very good example. The people from all over the world planned this and did this. It was of course on the debt crisis, but it was also a lot about the economic system and the Washington Consensus, how the World Bank and the IMF actually, made countries to follow an economic model which was really harmful. And this movement was very strong, it was very broad. This religious movement, schools, the trade unions, and so on, and civil society. So, of course, we are not in the year 1998 now, we are in 2023, so we are much broader, but I really hope for 2025, like for the World Social Summit, for the financing for development, we can bring something together. And that's my question to you. So as speakers, we believe it needs to be on global justice. We have heard a lot about injustices between the North and the global South. Historical but present. Global justice, and this includes social justice, of course, inequalities, social protection, health, gender equality. So then the whole, it needs to be connected with climate justice. That's also clear. This connection is very obvious. And then the whole, the connection with the financial justice was what we just heard, economic justice, now the present, the debt crisis, debt justice, and tax justice. But of course, it's the whole international financial architecture, which is the key reason for these injustices. So my question to us is, are we able to bring this together? Are we willing to do it together? And if we want to do it, then of course we need to work for it, and we cannot plan it here, but we can decide to work together and to communicate, to start with local people around the world, and plan this in a broad way so that we have a strong mobilization in 25. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingo. I think the panel here has energized us a lot. And I'm glad that this question has been posed, as we will use that question for intervention. So I'll invite contributions. I see some hands, more hands. We only have very little time, so I'll allow everyone to ask their questions in 30 seconds.
Wow, 30 seconds. Well, I wonder if I'll ask you the question. Has anybody in the room considered the possibility of what we could do with sponsored self-broadcast television programming to present all of this content to a much wider public? As if the media is not going to do this for us, if you haven't noticed. If we gather the sponsors and buy the time and produce events that are much more video friendly than this one is, we can come up with content that can actually communicate.
That wasn't me. But I think that's a very good suggestion and it will be responded to. But let's move on. Thank you to the panelists. Maybe mine is just to, we are talking about climate justice, we're talking about social and gender justice, and we are taking that with a whole overhaul of the financial architecture that is currently there. And I just wanted to bring to our attention that we do have a space, and we could, let me know if that's a space that we could engage and coordinate and work together towards the IMF and World Bank meetings in October, and how best can we then utilize that space to bring to the forefront the issues that we are talking about in terms of the overhaul of the financial architecture. Thank you. Already a suggestion for an upcoming influencing moment. Yeah. Thanks very much. Great panel. I just want to raise something which I didn't quite hear about the prevalence of divisive narratives that pit people against each other. I'm from the UK, and obviously we see it a lot in terms of the whole issue of people trying to get into the UK, escaping from conflict. And the divisive narrative that people are coming who then like, who will take our jobs, who are dirty, who are not our, So this flies against what we need to be focusing on, which is solidarity and human rights for all. And I think we need to call it out. You can't have global justice if you accept these narratives. And it's particularly prevalent with the issue of migration, but it's also between countries and between civil societies within them. So I think I'd like to add that to the mix. Thank you. Thank you very much. More contributions. I'll take two. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Naitelo. I'm from Botswana, a country neighboring South Africa. I think most of you know South Africa. Oh, okay. My question is, I heard one of the panelists speaking about SDG financing and aspect of SDGs as they are embedded on human rights, that we need to public finance for these. So I'm wondering, how are we going to public finance? Are we going to public finance as individual countries? Or are we going to public finance as civil society organizations, and exactly how? So that is where I wanted clarity on. Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, we have 1 minute. So I'll allow the gentleman here. Please, no speakers.
I just want to say thank you to each and every one of the panelists who came up here, took their time out and put their hearts on the line for us. I know this is a fight that you guys have been fighting for quite a while. This is my first time ever attending the meeting, so I just wanted to say that. And I hope this is not the last time we see each other. You know what I mean? Everybody, remember to stay united after we leave this room. This is not a momentary thing. If we're going to continue to fight, we have to remain united, all as one people. So God bless everybody, and thank you all.
Amanda. The last. I just wanted to share and ask about how the arts have been integrated into unifying these movements. I'm really nervous to talk, but I just feel like the arts are the way to unify all these movements. And I've had a dream of starting an agency dedicated to signing the power of the arts that would be independent of countries, because I feel countries are actually an extension of imperialism that divides us, and that we need to unify under the arts, and that if we had the international creative economy supporting grassroots movements, that this could be something that would benefit and unify all these movements together, and that we could have representation through an artist envoy like Lisa Russell has been working towards at the UN, with the arts representing all the issues that everyone is discussing and growing a foundation. As we fight to dismantle the foundation system, we need to also, I believe, grow a foundation with the arts as a leading force for change. Thank you, thank you. So we have 2 minutes. I will ask by show of hands the panelists, does anyone want to respond to anything that came out? Just very quickly, on the media, so television is one side of it, but I just want to talk more generally about the media. I think as civil society, we do need to do a better job of engaging with the media, because while many of us do have contact with media, the way that we really socialize agendas is by getting it in the headlines, getting it in the press. And I think as those who hold knowledge about what's happening on the ground and sort of the truer narrative, I think we do have a responsibility to take that to the media. On the decisive narrative question, I think that there are, it can, just to push back maybe a little bit, is that it can be harmful sometimes to focus on the divisions that divide us, and the North and the South, and the development agenda, non-development agendas, and this and that, and them versus us is always a tricky thing to navigate. And also, it's not just about creating a shopping list of all the words and all the items we want to see across different agendas. It's about thinking a little bit more deeply about what we're trying to do here. It's not just getting your agenda in the limelight as well. It's collectively, are we moving from point A to point B instead of just saying point A again and again and again and again. And just to reiterate, Brenda, what you said earlier, the Summit of the Future, and the SDG Summit has been, but it always has been, that the Summit of the Future is really for the countries that weren't there at the beginning and didn't have that voice and that strong power hold at the beginning. That's what this summit is about. So I know that there's a lot saying, oh, you know, it's the global North agenda, et cetera. But the global South needs to take it over, because this is a summit for the people that weren't here at the beginning. Last word of wisdom, Barbara? Can I? Uplifting red alerts. I've never heard of them. Okay. Well, greenwashing. Now, you shouldn't do this to me. I think, well, first of all, I do need to add one red alert, which is global public good. We're hearing more and more that what we're going to be all about in terms of financing, including ODA, is to finance global public good. But you've really got to explore who's defining global public goods and what gets on that agenda and what doesn't, okay? And another one is to really look out for the shared language, because sharing does not differentiate responsibility. It does not differentiate that a lot of what we're facing at the moment, we're not basically either caused or didn't make a major cause to. So we've got a kind of a shifting of the burden going on. So I'm not sure that's uplifting, mate, but you know, we know how to do this work, right? And so I think the issue really is, I suppose I have a slight different view about the Summit of the Future. I don't think it's about just making happen what's already on the agenda, because I think a lot of what's on the agenda has been shaped by power imbalances in decision making. And what it's really about is redoing multilateralism and trying to get rid of a lot of those imbalances in global governance. And then we'll get better results. Thank you very much. Mobilisation, connecting our efforts, planning has come out, challenging the custodians of power, ensuring that those issues and tactics that are used to divide us are challenged. Ingo referred to how we mobilized during Jubilee 2000, but I also even take you a little bit further down in history, considering we talked about history. The fight against apartheid. It was a fight and a movement that was global at a time when we did not have social media. And yet the world heard, and yet the world connected and came together to fight apartheid. I think we can do this. We can do this if we commit to humanity. And we will definitely do this if we can commit to humanity. This has been a very energizing session and a real pleasure to moderate. Unfortunately, none of the questions have been answered, which came from this, because we just never have time for these kind of conversations. The next, we've already eaten into the next session. So at this point in time, let me just invite Maria. Maria from Forest, to take us to the next session. If your question hasn't been answered, please follow the panelists and ask them in detail. And we're here together. And the next session, I'm told, is to discuss all these issues further. So thank you very much. Thank you. And hello, everybody. How are you now? Good, because now I need you. This is the fun part. That's where we need you, because we didn't want to let you go before we would have some brainstorming sessions and try to answer. I can promise you will answer what some of the questions you have raised. But we would like to use this time that we have now, about an hour, to all get together and try to work together as one civil society network, working together, strategizing together, and planning together. So for that, we have planned a world cafe where we're hoping that we can build from each other, learn from each other, to come up with ideas and plans on key things. So we will have facilitators for 4 sessions here in the room. One will be about the Summit for the Future. We've heard a lot about it today. What is it that we can do about it? What do you see about it? What can we come all together? What can gather us to do something about the Summit for the Future? So the conversation will take place here. We will have 15 minutes about it, and then we will move around so everybody can take turn and build from what to do. Okay? Session number 2 over there will be about mobilization. We've heard Ingo's call for mobilization. So there we will be thinking about it. What kind of steps can it take? What could that mean? What is that? So brainstorming over there, mobilization. 15 minutes, and we will turn around so everybody can take turn. Over there, we will talk about climate action. We have to do something about it. So let's try to brainstorm all of us from all of different fields. What can we do to climate action? Last but not least, financing for development, a hot topic. We need to talk about it. What can we do about it all together? Again, let's leave our labels, let's leave organizations on the side for a minute. Let's think as one group, one unified civil society, and strategize together about how we could work together around those 4 things. And for those joining us online, there will be someone facilitating the conversation. So to get started, again, everybody will have an opportunity to work on all things so that you can build from each other what you can bring. So to make sure that everybody gets a shot at it. I would like to divide the room in 4. Imagine we can divide it in 4. If these parts could come maybe and start for Summit of the Future, these parts and mobilization, the back on my left, climate action, the front here on my left, financing for development, and you have the pleasure to choose. So we will have 50 minutes, then we will go around. So everybody will take to engage on everything. We want to hear from you. So give it your best. Let's see how we can rally around common things. Thank you. We're starting now. And then we will come back to share the findings on each group. Thank you.
Okay, so for anyone online who's wanting to participate, feel free to turn your camera on or hold on.
You really need to say just to that. And then I'm going to say, how are we going to get it? You're going to say, people power, okay? Tell me what you want, what you really want. Tell me what you need, what you really need. How are we going to get it? Tell me what you want, what you really want. Tell me what you need, what you really need. How are we going to get it? Tell me what you want, what you really want. Tell me what you need, what you really need. How are we gonna get it? Tell me what you want, what you really want. Tell me what you need, what you really need. How are we gonna get it? How are we gonna get it? Make some noise. We're almost done with our General Assembly, so passing it not to Ingo. Okay. All right, you're passing to me. So thank you, Leanne. Thank you so much. Hi everyone. So I'm going to help this this kind of concluding part of this discussion. I'm supporting Ingo and the team here. So I'm Ollie Henman from Action for Sustainable Development. It's been really amazing to hear all the conversations that have been happening now. And if we can come this way, come and join us. We really want to get some of the great feedback from all the conversations that have been happening. I've been over the road earlier today as well, and just listening to what some of the governments are saying. But I think that the conversations here are so much richer and so much more detailed than what we hear from the government. So I hope that they are listening to us and that we bring more of the. So I think the idea now is that we've had 4 different groups, and the idea would be that we get some feedback from those different groups. I know there is a fair amount of movement between the groups as well, and people have been able to join different parts of the conversation. So I'm just going to come around the room and try and see if someone would like to share from each of the corners. We had the 4 different discussions. Is there anyone on this side who would like to kick off, who would like to share? Yeah. So we had a obviously great group, lots of good people with very diverse backgrounds. So the discussion was very diverse. We got very good input from different sides. Our group was about finance for development. We were actually in the beginning we were not clear if we were going to talk about the financing for development conference, which is upcoming in 2025, or about the tax convention process, which has just been kicked off and will hopefully continue at the General Assembly. But we then went this FFD we discussed about the upcoming Financing for Development conference. We basically identified a few challenges or things we have to do. The first thing is obviously finances for most people in the street. I mean, it affects everyone, but it's a quite technical issue. So we
decided that we need to do things to make it more accessible. The second is we need definitely more political momentum for the conference. The third point is we need champion countries for different issues. I mean, PEX is moving forward because the African group here at the end was taking it forward. We used to have similar experiences like in debt, for instance, we had Argentina, some countries, but we lack basically champions for different areas of the agenda. So this is the third theme. And the fourth would be to make the issues containable, because we have very good experts working here at the UN level, on global level, but we don't really have the mass campaigns that we, for instance, have on climate, or Ingo mentioned the Jubilee campaigns 20 years ago. Basically, these are sort of good practice examples that we want to follow. So these are the four votes to move forward. Then we try to take it to the activity level to see what we're actually doing. And this is, on making it accessible, we decided to have like policy briefs for the new issues. On mobilizing momentum, the idea came up to take it more, away from New York to the country level, to the regional level, to have like regional convenings. The microphone, yes. And then the question was how to make these issues containable, or how to build a bigger movement. And we were, that was kind of course, a bit challenging discussion, but we want to link it with issues that affect people, like link it stronger to labor issues, break the silos, connected with very more tangible topics like health, education, austerity policies. We also linked with existing international schemes. So this was a brief wrap-up of our conversation. Thank you.
Amazing. And I think you're right. The financing really sits at the heart of so much of what we've been hearing about, and so many demands around financing, ensuring that governments actually now deliver on all of these promises that we've been hearing. So this is going to be crucial. I know there's another high-level meeting coming up. Is it tomorrow on the FFD as well? So there's a lot to watch and follow up on that. And the point about campaigning and mobilizing, I think we'll hear more about that as we go around the room. There's another group on that. So in this corner, is there someone who would like to come forward? Yeah, let me pass it up.
Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of reporting back. I have the pleasure of reporting back from my groups, and I would also call on the participants of those groups if I relay anything that was said in a way that they would wish were relayed in a different way. Please make your voices heard. Or if I forget anything, then just please let me know. First of all, what we were talking about mainly was how to accelerate and how to implement climate action, and sort of talking about examples that have worked well in different regions, and really trying to make use of what is really interesting and diverse knowledge that we had in our different groups. So one thing that we had was that campaigns have been really successful if they were scientifically grounded. And also that local and indigenous knowledge systems were really important. Also bringing those experiences to mobilize communities and to really make impact at the regional, at the national, and at the international level. There needs to be a very high awareness of the intersectionality of the crisis, and that those people who are marginalized in society are also most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. We had some really interesting reports on the impact of women and children from different regions, and this really needs to be considered when devising climate policy. And when we're talking about policymakers, the influence of private corporations was mentioned as a big problem, particularly around environmental pollution. There was lots of concern around Fukushima at the moment. That was mentioned a few times, and that's just one example of many, many areas in which this is happening. I'm going to finish up with two big points which were really reiterated in both discussions. One was the linking of movements, which is really connected to the intersectionality of the crisis, workers' movements, indigenous movements, youth, and increasing education methods. This was seen as really, really important. And then again, also linked to that, a systemic framing of the policy crisis, identifying culprits and taking culprits to court was seen as an important next step. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Amazing, amazing. And some really clear strands coming through around the mobilizing, around connecting across different movements. And I think we've seen that in the last couple of days, even with the climate march just yesterday, and making those linkages between the development rights agenda together with the climate agenda. The two are inextricably linked. I think, as Oksana has said, it's all one fight, and clearly we need to stand together at this time. So on that note, I think the next group is the mobilization group. So I don't know if Marie, yeah, here we go.
Hi there, yes, I got a lot of stuff. So on the mobilization side, first of all, there was a clear appetite for everybody to work under one umbrella as one group. Everybody agrees that right now all groups and organizations seem to be working in their sphere, on their agenda, and that we need to work together, to work together. But then the big question was, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And that big call for everybody to work on messages. So we had our first groups that played a key role in terms of trying to target with some global messages. And I will make sure to share all of them, thanks to Ingo, so everybody can see that. But very clearly, both groups ended up highlighting that who are we to decide what those messages should be. Those messages should not come from us, they should come from the community. So we should have a process with people's assemblies, starting at the local level, national level, regional level, global level. So it's coming bottom up. Then we're probably talking about two things. We are talking about doing a bit, maybe a bit more defining our advocacy. Time is ticking. What can we do before 2030? Can the whole agenda be implemented? Do we need to focus on key priorities? Of course, we can't say that. This needs to be discussed, decided at the community level, at the national level. So that was that point. Then, of course, everybody loved the idea of the big mobilization. We all got so inspired by the climate march yesterday. That was impressive. So wouldn't we love something around Agenda 2030 with all of us marching with the people understanding that the Agenda 2030 is for them as well and wanting to go to the street about it. How to go about it? Lots of ideas, but again, it needs to come with that messages bottom up. So how to do it, when to do it. Ingo had suggested that all this should happen for 2025. Everybody on the two groups agree that the clock is ticking. We have 2030 as a deadline. We need to plan now. Hopefully, we can get that mobilization by 2025 because the group agreed that we have some important summits coming up in 2025. We have the World Social Summit, the COP. There is also the Summit for the Future, because here that's in 2024. We've got processes to engage around. Of course, there's UNR that are always happening, but also the NDC on the climate side. So all that needs to happen on the advocacy side. And then on the mobilization side, we also need to get going. Question mark, the funding for all that to happen. If we want those processes from local to global to happen, we need the funding. We need our partners. We need our philanthropists to show up and to be there for them. Second point, we need the capacity training. We need people on the ground to be able to have those resources to get it going. And we needed to start working on that yesterday. So it happen tomorrow. So that's a very short summary, but we will be typing all those notes and all the details because especially on the messages, a lot of work happened for detailed messages, and I know we don't have time, so we'll share that soon go for everybody to review and to comment on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think there's so much energy coming. Please.
Disability. We had a small group working on that. You want to do this time? Sorry, no. Okay, so it will be done in French and I will translate now. As we have taken commitments, the United Nations has committed to leave no one behind. And this is just not words. This is why we are asking for what follows. So we have to get into the voice of people with disability will be included and heard to put the SDG implementation back on its trail. We ask that people with disability be placed at the center of all discussions and all decision making in this process, in the implementation. And we ask that the financing and the indicators also take into consideration people with disabilities. And to finish, I am a defender of human rights. And I defend people with disabilities and marginalized communities. And I have taken that commitment a long time ago with Ngo. And there's another colleague, Advocacy, who stopped. And we have to get his voice heard as civil society. We have to ask for a stand to be freed up. That's a journalist who works on human rights, and that needs to be freed. So we ask our government to free him up. Please free him up now without any delay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. DRC. Please, Danny. Merci beaucoup. Oui, parfait. Thank you so much. It's really important that we send the point that really we see the human stories behind it. So thank you. Thank you so much. So we've had so much input already. We had another group on this side, which is then looking towards the coming year. So not as far as 2030, but in the next year, we have the Summit of the Future, which is a stepping stone towards that future that we want. We know that this is something that is still very much being discussed. How does it really fit together? What are some of the priorities? So we had a really rich discussion over here. I don't know if Jeff and maybe also Florence might want to add, but let's start with Jeff. Thank you so much. Well, it's great to follow through with the follow-up from the mobilization discussions, because there's so many lessons learned that we can incorporate into the Summit of the Future preparations. And if we had to start yesterday with 2025, we had to start last year for 2024, right? So the first item was recognizing that very few people have heard about the Summit of the Future, not only in this room, but in the public. So there's a strong recommendation that we should use media to reach, I quote, young people who give a damn. And the way we can do that is to use TikTok, for example. It was said that in Asia they use TikTok to educate the public. I'm usually not asked to speak more loudly, but I will speak into the microphone. Yeah. So that was a very clear recommendation. Also, this SDG Action Weekend was seen as a great precedent, and we would like to see the United Nations open its doors for more than just 2 days, so that we as civil society can prepare ourselves for the Summit of the Future and Unga High Level Week more broadly. And we should also use this as an opportunity to help us take the discussion back home, right? So we would like to have more time here in New York to really organize ourselves in advance in that sense. There was also an echo of the need to really have a bottom-up process to really engage the conversation at the local level, at the country level, and onto the regional level that we then would bring to the global level. So that was a message that was clearly heard. There was a discussion about the importance of addressing the mindset, creating peace in the mind of man and women, and that we really need to to dig deep to really engage the indigenous wisdom embodied in humanity in that regard. That the Summit of the Future is also a summit of oneness, right? So, and so we need to be united in our approach in this regard. It was noted that no politician is going to oppose the SDGs in principle. But the question is how to engage our political establishment in implementation of the SDGs. And so in this regard, there was a recommendation that we really need to create toolkits to incorporate into our respective campaigns and help to develop grassroots movements and bring in a mass mobilization in that regard. The Summit of the Future should really focus on implementation and on coherence. Further, we should build on existing campaigns, such as the Unmute campaign, which already has the support of 52 governments. So we need to identify campaigns that have this type of support, so we can build it on that support, so that member states will help us achieve our goals. There was also some concern expressed about the Summit of the Future. Will the Summit of the Future divert attention from implementation of the SDGs? And that we need to ensure that the Summit of the Future really will be a process whereby the outcomes of the SDG Summit and the political declaration will be further advanced. And then there was some discussion about the importance of UN reform, bringing in the regional perspective, particularly from, for example, from the African Union, the fact that the African Union Economic and Social Cultural Council is engaged in this process, and we need to identify those entry points at the national and regional levels to make the Summit of the Future a more meaningful process. Thank you. Florence, would you like to add anything more? Do you want to, maybe you could mention a few words about the thinking towards Nairobi that you mentioned? Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, that's more like it. Where we come from when you say good evening or good morning, people have to always sit back. Thank you very much. And I believe, great now. Yeah. I believe Jeff has done a good job in terms of really telling us or just summarizing what people said in that particular group. But what is amazing, and I think I want to quote Oli, in terms of some of the things with the SDG implementation, we've realized that there are, of course, existing gaps, things that maybe were not thought about when the SDGs were being adapted and the implementation process. And so, of course, the Summer of the Future is giving us an opportunity as different stakeholders, especially from civil society, to be able to come together to ignite new things and new ideas. What is it that we want to showcase or want to follow up in terms of implementation, monitoring, and review? And so mine is just to briefly just welcome you to Nairobi for this particular conference. I know we're sharing more information, but it'll be good to see most of you. I live in Nairobi. We're from Nairobi. I'm from Nairobi, sorry. And so it will be exciting to have many of you come over. But also, before coming over, our challenge to you is if you could be engaged at your national level, if you could really bring that.
And so just clearly, if you like, a kind of a road from here until the coming years, what Florence is highlighting is that in May, I think, of next year of 2024, I don't remember which year we're in, 2024, May of 2024, there will be a dialogue on the build-up towards the Summit of the Future, and that's happening in Nairobi. So exactly as Florence has highlighted, we need to take the conversation outside the UN, outside New York, bring it more to the experiences that people have around the world. And that's where the thinking is around having this additional dialogue in May in Nairobi. Then in next September, there will be the Summit of the Future happening. We hope there'll be something like this Civil Study Weekend. Again, that's something we'll definitely be working with many of you on. And as you've heard, there's been suggestions around, pushing the UN to be even more open, start the process earlier, enable people to register, enable people to get visas. We know there's been a lot of challenges for people to be here, and we really appreciate the number of people who have made it here in spite of all those challenges. So building towards next September. And then beyond that, as Inga's highlighted, there's then other summits coming up as we build towards 2030. There's the Social Summit. There's the COP likely in Brazil in 2025 as well. We'll probably hear from Lula tomorrow in the General Assembly. So there's energy building, and I guess we've got to get behind where we see those opportunities and build that mobilization that the group on this side was really highlighting, so that it comes from the grassroots through to those upcoming summits. So hopefully we can keep building together, and I know everyone in this room is strongly committed to that. And it's been really good to hear all the inputs. There is one more, right? So there is one more online in the spirit again of inclusivity for those who haven't been able to be physically here. We've had the conversations running also on Zoom, so I think we can also hear from the Zoom group. Who'd like?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who participated in online. Special thanks to Mahatab. And then we had about 8 people working on our document together, so that was nice. We just split it up into the 4 topics so that we could cover all of them. So we just have a couple of points for each. Under climate, we spoke about the development of technology to increase the production of food that is done in a sustainable way so people can access it, and similar for energy. And also here we have a point on the protection of seawalls and biodiversity, which we've heard about in some sessions already today and yesterday. Under Summit of the Future, we spoke about, obviously we've heard a lot about being halfway there, but we were talking about what will happen after 2030. Are we going to keep the same goals, and also sort of broadening our perspective to not just include the 2030 agenda, but looking back over some of these issues and how they're built up over longer periods of history, and factoring social barriers such as inequality and poverty. So maybe obviously important to be framed in the context of the 2030 agenda, but also thinking past that and realizing that the issues that we're talking about today come long before the invention of it as well. We had some discussion on peace and financing for development within the context of peace. We also spoke about financing for development in terms of basic education, and how we need to expand basic education to ensure, so the UN has a mandate for up to 12 years, but of high quality higher education for all, but how this is only being achieved to primary levels in a lot of cases. So how do we finance to increase this access to education? And then finally, we spoke about mobilisation. So the 2 key points on mobilisation we mentioned were SDG accountability. So how do we keep holding the member states of the UN and the UN itself accountable to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals? How can we measure them effectively to ensure this accountability, especially in areas where measurement might be more difficult? And the final aspect was, how can we involve people who can't really make their voices heard in these spaces or aren't listened to when in these spaces? So the People's Assembly, I think, has done a good job of being representative and having a lot of people here. But like Ollie said, there's always issues with visas and people not being able to access these UN spaces. So as we mobilise, it's really important that we try to reach out to everybody that's not just within this sort of civil society group. And that is everything. Thank you, everyone online, for your inputs. And it's been nice listening to all of you in the room as well.
Resources. We end up doing much more of the hybrid meetings and bringing in voices from around the world than they do in the UN. So hopefully that's another thing that we can push them on. So I think one very last point that was highlighted in that group that we didn't mention so much in the room is then even looking beyond 2030. And I don't think we're going to start that conversation right now, but it's interesting to already have that in mind in the longer term. So I think we're more or less at a wrap for this group, Ingo. Do I pass back to you for the closing? Who do we? Everyone's ready to go. I can see ready to get out march. Okay, thank you, Ali. So we are going to have a short break. There's coffee, and then we will start sharp at 5. There's a closing plenary. So we will have some great artists here. So we will start with that. So we are, so be here, and we will have some preparation for the stand. We have some speakers looking forward how we can move forward as to the society. So we have, for example, Lisa John from City Coast. We have the Secretary General of Amnesty International. We have the head of Save the Children. But we also want to have your voices. So we have more space. So Lisa will say something about artists. But we have some more space. We will have Hugh Grantner from the Children and Media Group of Children and Youth. But just if some of you want to have some final words about the People's Assemblies, how to move this forward, be prepared, and then you can come in. So we do the 15-minute break now and come back at 5.
to please pick up the cups and take them to the trash can, because, and the bottles and all the trash, because, yeah, we have the volunteers just picking up cups and things like that. We want governments to be accountable, but let's be accountable for our own cup, our own trash. Thank you. We have trash cans in the back part, just in case. Thank you. So,
Hello.
okay, folks, we are wrapping up and we're going to get ready to do our closing plenary. Okay, y'all, we're gonna start wrapping up with our closing session. So for the folks in the back, if you can start making your seats and start wrapping up your conversation. Let's do another chat to get people back into the mood of things. If folks want to stand up, this one kind of requires your hands going up in the air. Yes, I see you doing that. It goes, get up, get down. There's the people's movement in this town. Get up, get down. There's a people's movement in this town. Get up, get down. There's a people in this town. Get up, get down. There's a people's movement in this town. Get up, get down. There's a people's movement in this town. Get up, get down. There's a people's movement in this town. Yeah. It's not exercise because